For the first time in recent memory, there should be a very large Canadian contingent in this year's playoffs. So with that as a backdrop, around the NHL, what else should we be watching for as we enter postseason play? Mark Rowe is a TSN broadcaster, and he joined yours truly on Tuesday to chat about everything NHL. So, first of all, Mark, we want to take the opportunity to welcome you to the Two Man Advantage podcast, and we're excited to talk some NHL hockey with you as we head into the playoffs.
Awesome. It's great to be here.
So, as we look at it, Mark, could you tell me, what do you think of the top 5 headlines that are making news around the league that everybody's chatting about right now?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. I'll say this. From where I stand, I'll say what people are talking about in Canada and at TSN rather than across the league, just because where I stand from, that's probably where I know what's going on a little bit more than, say, across the league or when I was at the NHL Network. So for the sake of that, I'll say this. Right now, obviously a huge one, and it's not because I'm in Toronto right now, but it's obviously a huge story across the country. It's, the fact Toronto Maple Leafs are inching closer to returning to the playoffs, and obviously this is one of the biggest teams in hockey, but given, with this group, where they are, how young they are, and where they're positioned, and the fact that they could play the Ottawa Senators, it's a massive story for hockey and for hockey north of the border, and regardless of it's, whether you're talking about Sportsnet or TSN, just how big of a story that will be in a couple of weeks if that ends up happening. The other one is, what's going on in Alberta right now, and with the Flames and the Oilers, again, also two younger teams, but two teams that have kind of, been able to get over the hump and get in the position that they're in, and they've already clinched playoff spots. And again, similar to the Leafs and the Sens, that's a potential playoff series as well. And that's a history that we see during the regular season, but one that has, is so rich in tradition going back into the 80s with how much they played each other in the playoffs, and, the Oilers defeating the Flames, so many times en route to winning those Stanley Cups. Calgary defeating Edmonton in '86 en route to going to the Cup Final. So, so much history there, and the fact that they could meet each other as well. And then speaking of Edmonton and Calgary and Toronto, I think another huge story is the young stars. And you look at what Austin Matthews and William Nylander and Mitch Marner and Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, like Connor McDavid. You just look at this list and where the game is going, and it's in great shape because of these young stars. But every single night, every sports network is able to showcase these young stars, and it's if you're the NHL, if you're an owner or you're on the board, you have to be happy with where things are going, given that you have these stars that you can kind of put your business behind and know that they're going to be around for the next 15 years. I guess another big story would be, the Washington Capitals, and just will they finally break through, and I guess we'll find out in a month or so. This is a team that can win another President's Trophy, did it last year, they've done it in the past, they've always had success in the regular season, and just haven't been able to do it in the playoffs. And really, I don't think you're being hyperbolic by saying that this is a team that needs to get to the Cup Final, and if not, it's a failure. And so we'll see what they can do if they face Columbus or they face Pittsburgh. They have the toughest road to a Cup Final, but it'll be interesting to see what that group can do. I think that's 4 that I have so far.
Yeah, you need one more.
Let's go with the awards. And does someone like Connor McDavid win his first Hart? And if he wins this, first is the first of many. I think that is an interesting argument as well. The race for the Calder, really, when has it ever been as good as it is? And that's a debate that we've been having all season long because of Patrick Laine and Austin Matthews you certainly put Marner and Nylander in that category, Zach Werenski in Columbus. Like, there are guys that aren't going to get nominated that could have won the Calder in previous years, and that's phenomenal. So, and it goes back to, my answer about the young stars, but, award season's interesting, and the Norris as well. We thought Brent Burns had wrapped that up, and now, Erik Karlsson is right in the mix there, and I don't think he'll go down to the wire. So, there's still a lot to be done between now and the award season, but that really should be interesting to see what ends up happening in Vegas.
Now, you talked about this a little bit, about how it's good that the young stars across the league are performing so well, and how well that is for the league in terms of marketing and notoriety. So just one final follow-up on this question. How do you think the emergence of the young stars will help the novice hockey fan get engaged in hockey this postseason, knowing that you have original six teams competing for the playoffs again, and how they can get behind younger stars as well?
Well, you use the word marketing, and you look at how other sports have marketed themselves, and the first sport I think of is basketball, and that is a sport that especially one in North America, that markets their stars as well as any of them, and how many kids out there want to be LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or James Harden, Russell Westbrook. Those are all such big stars. So you look at a novice, you're talking about a kid or someone that's just getting into hockey, and you've always had Sidney Crosby, so it's not as if hockey hasn't had someone to look at, but now you have so many young stars that should be in this league for 15 years, given how they play, and it's in an incredibly entertaining style of hockey that they all play now in terms of their speed and their moves, and it seems like every night there's a highlight reel goal. So it's easy to sell the sport when they're playing the way they are, and it's easy to sell these stars to a younger player who they're going to cheer for their team, but we all remember when we were kids, everyone knew who their favorite player was.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that necessarily as much as when you're an adult, but it's going to be a lot of kids out there that are going to be battling, who's better, Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid, or I like Johnny Gaudreau more, or I like Sean Monahan more, or I like Patrick Laine more. So, and those are all great things to have if you're, an ambassador of the sport, because you have kids talking about the game, you have kids then wanting to, if you're talking about the business of the game, wanting to see them, wanting to buy jerseys, wanting to buy posters, whatever. So, I think it drives the whole business model of hockey as well, and it also helps kids want to play the sport, which you would never think that's a problem in Canada, but you look at numbers, and more and more kids are playing other sports as well. So you need the Connor McDavids to sell the game as well.
So as we enter the playoffs, what do you think are the top three matchups or storylines that we should keep an eye on as the postseason begins?
Well, I think for those listening, they better get some sleep, because as a fan in Canada, you're actually going to be invested in double headers because of the Oilers and the Flames, and you haven't had that in the last few years, and you just look at what happened last year, and you didn't have any Canadian teams as well. So I think that's a huge thing that they're going to be emotionally invested, and that's, for some, this might be a totally new experience. For those who are a little bit older, you maybe take for granted that you had some of those experiences, that you could watch the Canadians or the Sens or the Leafs at 7 o'clock in a playoff game that was huge, and then later that night it was the Canucks or the Flames, and hasn't been the Oilers since 2006, but now they're back in. So that, I think that's huge for Canada, and it'll be interesting to see how the nation reacts. I'm really looking forward to seeing which teams who had long playoff runs last season and in seasons past, and what their stamina is like this spring, and that is always a huge factor, and it's a big reason why we don't see teams repeat like we used to 20, 30 years ago. And, you look at the Chicago Blackhawks, who have the modern-day dynasty, and that's really the best you're going to get, I think, in this generation of the NHL. They lose in the first round last year, and really, is that a blessing in disguise? Because they went to the Stanley Cup and won it in 2015, and they have the number one seed in the West this year. It's tough. It's tough. You hear this all the time. Like, you'll talk about Sidney Crosby. He's played a lot of hockey. It's a lot of mileage on his body. Or you hear that all the time about we talked about the LA Kings when they were going on their runs, and you often saw that catch up with them. And so I'll be interested to see who kind of has the advantage as well, in terms of going into the playoffs and how much they've played, and how fresh they'll be and how long they can go this year. And I think another one is just what kind of hockey are we going to see in the playoffs as well? And we've seen glimpses in the regular season of this great offensive talent come out, and then as the season moves on, you see tighter games. Just if you take a look at the Leafs as well, they're playing in so many of these one-goal games. What should we expect in the playoffs? And if you want me to answer that, I would say we're probably going to see the exact same thing, where it's going to be tougher to generate offense. It's going to be tougher to break away from teams, and it's going to make for some really entertaining hockey.
And can you tell me, just one follow-up, what Canadian team do you think will have the deepest run this postseason?
Ooh, it's time for me to already make predictions? Already?
Already. Putting you on the spot.
You know what? I really like what I'm seeing from the Edmonton Oilers right now, and they're still a couple years away from truly contending, but they've really put things together over the last few weeks where obviously they're getting a ton of offense, and they were going through a stretch, and excuse me if the stat isn't totally accurate, but at least it was, I would say, a week ago. They were scoring more than a goal per game than any other team in the NHL, and it's pretty remarkable that their unit's able to do that. But they're also Cam Talbot's been great, and I think given where they are, and their Pacific Division is not easy by any means, but I also look at that situation and think there's no one that I say that team's definitely going to win it, or that team's definitely going to the Stanley Cup Final. Maybe a month ago I would have said that about the Sharks. Obviously, they've slowed down, and so as long as Edmonton can avoid Chicago before the conference final, I could easily see them getting to the Final Four.
And looking back on the regular season, what were some of your best memories this past regular season on the ice?
I swear I'm not saying this because I'm in Toronto right now, but Austin Matthews' first goal, scoring 4 goals. His first game against Ottawa, scoring 4 goals. That was pretty phenomenal. And I think even a diehard Montreal Canadiens fan would say that as well. Just like, who breaks into the NHL doing that? And it's been unbelievable. And I know you're looking for memories and moments, and then what he's been able to do since then. But certainly an interesting way of kicking the door open and saying hello to the NHL. If I could say that Columbus's 16-game winning streak, it's a franchise record. That's the second longest in NHL history. Only the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 90s were able to break that, or have done better, I should say. Pretty remarkable that run that they've been able to do. And then, they, for the most part, kind of kept that going. I think a lot of people thought that they would kind of, move off and not be the talented and competitive team that they were during that stretch. And it's been unbelievable what that group has been able to do. I don't know if this is because it's recently or not, but the Sidney Crosby goal against Buffalo I thought was phenomenal, and is probably the goal of the year for me. To be able to go coast to coast against the Sabres like that, use one hand, go backhand, top shelf. Like I don't know who can do that. I don't know anyone else that can do that, and it's pretty phenomenal what Sidney Crosby still is able to do. and I quite frankly think that he's taken for granted. It's unbelievable.
And can you tell me, as we head into the summer, what two free agents are you most interested to see where they go?
Well, he's not technically a free agent this summer, but I'm going to see John Tavares because all indications point to that he will either sign an extension this summer or he'll be traded. He doesn't want to pull a Steven Stamkos. I think that whole situation is huge because you never see a player of that caliber available in the NHL. They don't become available, and that's why the idea of Stamkos moving and signing with somewhere else was so big in the summer. And John Tavares is another guy that can change a franchise. He's one of obviously the best guys up the middle. Every team needs, wants, whatever. So I'll be very interested to see what ends up happening with him. In terms of a guy that actually will be a UFA this summer, I think Kevin Shattenkirk, obviously, is a huge one. He was the big name of the trade deadline. He's a guy that 4 straight years with over 40 points, got over 50 this year, quarterback's a power play. He drastically changes your blue line. There's a team, dare I say, did the Toronto Maple Leafs make a big move and go after him, which would be a gamble given his price tag and given all the talent that Toronto has to sign. But it'll be very interesting to see, who makes that significant push with their own organization to sign a player like Kevin Shattenkirk, who's, by far the biggest free agent available this summer.
And finally, a 3-part question for you. What would be your dream Stanley Cup matchup, a dark horse Stanley Cup matchup, and who do you ultimately think will win the Stanley Cup?
Okay. Wow. I have a couple answers for you. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Here's the answer that, as if you're a Canadian hockey fan, you want Toronto Edmonton because I think it's self-explanatory. But obviously the Maple Leafs making the Stanley Cup Final. Edmonton getting back there with Connor McDavid. You'd have East versus West. You'd have the whole nation. It'd be I can't even think of any event in my lifetime that would compare to something like that. And just incredible, like McDavid versus Matthews. Like it'd be so easy to build it. In terms of building it, if you're the NHL and thinking more of an American audience, I think we still all want to see the Chicago-Pittsburgh Stanley Cup Final that we haven't been able to see yet, as crazy as it is, given how successful both teams have been. But I think we want to see Crosby and Taves in the Stanley Cup Final. There's always been a debate between the two. So that one maybe is a little bit, not. That one is more realistic than a Toronto-Edmonton Stanley Cup Final. So the Chicago-Pittsburgh one is probably more of an answer that I can give. In terms of a dark horse, I'll stick with a team and say the Columbus Blue Jackets in the East. And it's crazy to call them a dark horse, but I guess because of their history, they fall in that category because I don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't hear anyone picking them, and that's because it's not the sexier pick. Like you would pick a Washington or certainly a Pittsburgh or a Chicago. They just don't have the history that you can look back to and say, yeah, I can see them going to the Stanley Cup Final. Like they're still such a wild card. And Kevin, when you look at what they've been able to do this regular season, and they're probably not getting the respect that they deserve. You look at the goal differential, and last time I checked, they have the second best goal differential in the entire NHL. And I think that's it's not a be-all end-all stat, but I still think it's pretty significant. You always want to make sure that you have the goaltender that can get you far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Well, Sergei Bobrovsky is as good as they come right now. He's been phenomenal. The team has depth. Again, they're not a Pittsburgh or a Chicago, but I certainly think that they have the tools to make a long run. And if they did, I think they do fall in that dark horse category.
Hey, Mark, we had a lot of fun talking NHL hockey with you this morning on the Two Man Advantage podcast, and we want to thank you for your time this morning.
Evan, really appreciate it. Loved it. Thank you.